Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking something really fascinating, but honestly, a little unsettling. We're looking at the unseen patterns in human behavior, specifically the 5 psychological signs someone secretly hates you. So get ready, because we're going to look right past the obvious stuff and really analyze the hidden mechanisms that drive how people interact with us. Right off the bat, have you ever been around someone who is, perfectly polite, they smile at all your jokes, they seem outwardly supportive, yet your gut tells you something is just completely wrong? You might feel this strange tension in the air, or maybe just a really slight shift in their energy that you can't quite put your finger on. Well, most people just quickly dismiss those feelings as paranoia, right? They tell themselves, oh, I'm just overthinking things. But here's what psychology actually reveals. Those gut feelings often point to very real, hidden internal mechanisms of dislike. The conscious mind tries incredibly hard to hide these feelings, but the subconscious, it always leaves clues.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the polite facade, move into active sabotage and blame, decode some silent signals and leaks, explore the empathy void, and then wrap it all up with your psychological safety. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The polite facade. The social mask. Think of their behavior like a giant iceberg. What you see up there on the surface is just a polite mask, the smiles, the agreeable nods, but underneath, that is where you find motives that are simply too socially risky for them to admit openly. That's where we run into this concept of identity frustration. It's absolutely crucial to reframe the situation right away. This secret hatred, it's rarely actually about you. It's really a form of self-protection for them. Secret hatred almost always stems from deep-seated insecurities. So when this person's brain processes your success, it does so competitively, and that directly threatens a very, very fragile ego. They hold themselves to impossible standards, dealing with this constant habit of comparison and secret self-hatred. Seeing you succeed literally makes them feel inadequate, so the hatred just becomes this defense mechanism to protect their own identity.
And because holding up that polite mask all day is just absolutely exhausting, honestly, who has the energy for that? The insecurity eventually spills over. So here are your 5 specific behavioral cracks to watch out for. Highlighting your subtle failures, nonverbal microshifts, selective silence, responsibility avoidance, and finally the empathy void. These are the exact leaks where that hidden dislike seeps right through.
Which brings us to Section 2, active sabotage and blame, shifting the blame.
So, this is where that internal identity frustration turns into active external behavior, and this brilliantly illustrates it. Just notice the difference in how people handle mistakes. A normal friend is going to completely overlook a small error. They aren't actively scanning your life for slip-ups, but a secret hater, they scan your life for evidence of inadequacy. Because their ego is feeling threatened, their brain naturally searches for your mistakes to use as proof that you aren't actually as good as everyone thinks. So if you make a tiny error, yeah, they might laugh it off, but they're going to follow it up with some vague answer that subtly brings all the attention right back to your failure. It actually soothes their own secret self-hatred to see you stumble.
And that brings us to another active form of sabotage, responsibility avoidance. A major hallmark of emotional immaturity is constantly looking for someone else to blame. If you ever find yourself in a disagreement with someone who secretly dislikes you, you are going to notice that they absolutely refuse to take ownership of their part in the conflict.
To really understand exactly how they weaponize this, let's break down the clinical steps of what we call the win-lose cycle. Step 1, they view you as a direct threat to their identity, which turns every single interaction into a competition. Step 2, when a conflict arises, they will oversimplify the details and shift the blame entirely onto you. And step 3, they do this to rescue their own ego by making you the villain. They literally cannot afford to be the bad guy in their own narrative, so they just project that role squarely onto you.
Moving right along to Section 3, silent signals and leaks, unprocessed emotions.
Going a bit deeper beneath the surface, away from that active blame, we hit a really interesting phenomenon called cognitive overload. Imagine the sheer amount of brain power it takes to perfectly manage this performance of being a nice, supportive person, while internally you are just bubbling with resentment. It takes a massive toll. Psychology shows us that unprocessed emotions rarely just disappear. Because their words are totally inconsistent with their true feelings, those emotions end up returning as racing thoughts and physical leaks. Even if they are saying all the right things on paper, their tone of voice, their facial expressions, and those tiny nonverbal microshifts, they give them away every time. Another fascinating silent signal here is selective silence. It's all about bringing information in without giving anything away. A lot of people who harbor secret negative feelings
will use silence as a highly effective form of self-protection. They will actively avoid certain questions about their own lives just to maintain emotional distance. And this keeps you completely in the dark, preventing you from catching on to what their real motives are.
But make no mistake, this quietness isn't shyness, not at all. It is a highly calculated tactic. By staying quiet and just observing everything, they maintain total control over what others know, all while quietly noticing patterns in your behavior. They're actively building a mental model of your vulnerabilities, basically gathering data that they can potentially use against you later on. It's a very strategic, highly defensive silence.
All right, Section 4. The empathy void, lack of group identity.
This is perhaps the most glaring sign of the whole shebang, and it becomes incredibly obvious when you look at how this person reacts, or rather fails to react, when you achieve something great. Humans naturally enjoy being part of a group, right? We like supporting each other's wins. When we have a healthy group identity, we feel a genuine emotional reward when our friends succeed. Everyone is invested in your happiness. But a secret hater? They do not identify with your success at all. While everyone else is cheering you on, they remain completely unaffected. Or, suddenly, they become highly focused on entirely different priorities, just to avoid acknowledging your win altogether.
When you win big, you will often witness what we call the celebration reaction. Instead of joining the party, they might cancel plans or just completely disappear socially. And why is that? It's because your joy directly triggers their emotional exhaustion. Remember that identity frustration we talked about earlier? Your achievements heighten their own fear of rejection and their deeply buried feelings of inadequacy. They literally do not have the emotional capacity to celebrate you, so they just vanish.
Finally, Section 5. Your psychological safety, protecting peace of mind.
So, what does this all mean? What do we actually do with all this fascinating psychological insight? Well, the goal of this explainer is absolutely not to encourage you to go out and start conflicts with people who might be harboring these feelings. Instead, it's about recognizing the hidden patterns that most people completely overlook, so you can fiercely protect your own peace of mind. Once you fully grasp the deeper reasons why people act the way they do, that it's about their fragile egos, not your worth, you can finally stop overthinking these awkward social interactions. You can let go of the paranoia, take a step back, and focus purely on your own growth and well-being. I want to leave you with this one question to think about. How will you use your new understanding of human nature to protect your psychological safety today? Once you start understanding the small things that shape people's lives, you begin seeing human nature in a way most people never will. Stop overthinking, start observing, and apply this knowledge to navigate your relationships with incredible clarity. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.